Have you ever felt like you're not really living your life? You're just playing a version of yourself that somehow works. Like you know what to say, how to act, how to respond. But something about it feels slightly off, like you're performing. Instead of being, you smile when you're supposed to. You speak when it's expected. You follow the path that makes sense. And from the outside, nothing seems wrong. But inside, there's a quiet distance, a subtle disconnect of feeling that you can't fully explain, like you're present, but not completely. There, like your life is happening, but not entirely yours. And sometimes that feeling becomes a question. Is this really me, not in a dramatic way, not in a way anyone else would notice, but quietly, persistently? And the strange thing is, you're still functioning, you're still moving forward, but something feels missing, something feels unreal. This experience has a name in psychology. It is often linked to what is called depersonalization, a state where the mind creates distance between you and your own sense of self. Not because something is broken, but because something inside you is trying to protect you. Your brain is not just thinking, it is constantly predicting, according to predictive processing theory. Your mind builds a model of who you are based on past experiences, social feedback, and repeated behaviors. And over time, that model becomes stronger than your direct experience. So instead of living moment by moment, you begin to live according to the version of yourself your brain believes is safest. And that is where the shift begins, because it doesn't start as confusion. It starts as adaptation. At some point, you learned how to be. What was needed? Maybe it was subtle. Maybe no one ever said it directly, but your brain noticed patterns. It noticed what made people respond positively. It noticed what reduced tension, what brought approval, what created safety. So you adjusted, not consciously, but automatically. This is known as social conditioning. Your nervous system learning which version of you is most accepted. And according to neuroscience, this process is deeply connected to the brain's reward system. When you receive approval, dopamine reinforces the behavior. When you avoid rejection, your brain marks that as survival success. So slowly you shape yourself around those patterns, and over time those patterns become identity. You become the version of yourself that fits, the version that avoids conflict, that meets expectations, that keeps things smooth, and in many ways that version works. It helps you navigate life. It keeps things stable, but something else happens beneath the surface. You stop checking if that version still feels true because everything appears fine. And the brain prefers consistency, even if that consistency is misaligned, because uncertainty requires energy. And the brain is designed to conserve energy whenever possible. So the question never appears until one day it does. And when it does, it doesn't arrive loudly. It appears in stillness, in silence, in moments where there is nothing to distract you. And suddenly you notice. You notice the gap between what you show and what you feel, between how you act and what feels natural. And once the brain detects mismatch, it cannot ignore it. This is called cognitive dissonance, when your internal state and external behavior are not aligned. And cognitive dissonance creates tension, a subtle psychological discomfort that pushes you to resolve the inconsistency. But instead of resolving it, many people begin to observe it, analyze it, question it, which leads to another layer: hyper self-awareness. This is where the brain's default mode network becomes active, the system responsible for self-referential thinking, thinking about yourself, monitoring yourself, evaluating your identity. And the more this system activates, the more you step outside your own experience. You begin to watch yourself. Instead of being yourself, you become both the actor and the observer. And this creates a loop: you Try to feel real, but the more you try, the more you analyze, and the more you analyze, the less present you become, so you begin to feel like you're faking, not because you are, but because you are no longer fully inside your own experience and beneath. All of this, there is something important. This does not come from emptiness, it comes from sensitivity, from a brain that is highly aware of subtle differences between what feels true and what doesn't. People who experience this often have higher introspective awareness, meaning they can observe their internal state more deeply. But without grounding, that awareness turns into detachment. Because you are aware of too many possibilities, too many versions of yourself, too many ways things could be. So instead of settling into one experience, you hover, and that hovering feels like unreality. Like nothing is fully solid. Like you are slightly outside your own life. But here is something important. This state is not permanent because it is not a fixed identity. It is a pattern, and patterns can change. What if you are not faking your life? What if your brain is simply over-controlling your sense of self, trying to maintain safety, trying to avoid uncertainty? Because, from a neurological perspective, uncertainty activates the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for threat detection. So your system prefers predictability, even if it means disconnection, but presence works differently. Presence activates the prefrontal cortex in a grounded way, allowing experience without constant evaluation, and that is where the shift begins, not by forcing yourself to be real, but by reducing the need to monitor yourself, by allowing experience without immediately analyzing it. This is why mindfulness-based therapies focus on awareness, without judgment, because judgment creates distance, while observation creates connection. So instead of asking, "Is this really me?" you begin to experience what is happening right now without needing to confirm it, and slowly the distance softens, not because you forced it, but because you stopped interfering with it. So if you feel like you're faking your life, it does not mean something is wrong. It means your system has been adapting for a long time. And now you are becoming aware of that adaptation, and awareness is the beginning of returning, not to a perfect version of yourself, but to a more present one, a quieter one, a less controlled one. And that return does not require transformation. It requires space to exist, without constant correction, without constant performance, without needing to prove. Because your life was never something you needed to perform. It was something you were meant to experience. And if this felt familiar, you are not alone. This is more common than people realize. If you want to explore more of these patterns, you can subscribe, only if it feels right, and if you feel comfortable, you can share what this feels like for you, because sometimes putting it into words is the first step toward feeling real again. Take care of yourself. You are not fake. You are becoming aware. And that is where everything begins.